November 2021. Federal agents open a popcorn tin hidden in a bathroom closet. Inside, a tiny circuit board controlling over 50,000 Bitcoin, worth $3.3 billion. For 10 years, no one knew who stole it. Not the FBI. Not the IRS. Not the people who ran the dark web's most notorious marketplace. This fortune vanished from Silk Road in 2012, without alarms, without suspects, without a single arrest. And then, after a decade of silence, the hacker made one mistake. A transfer so small it barely mattered. $200. How did the largest dark web crypto theft in history stay hidden for 10 years? And how did one tiny transaction finally expose the man who almost got away with everything? It's September 2012. Deep inside the dark web, online drug markets are thriving, and one platform sits above all the rest. Silk Road. Hidden behind Tor encryption, it operates like an anonymous version of eBay. Buyers and sellers trade cocaine, weapons, hacking services, all without names, faces, or locations. Payments move through a new digital currency most governments barely understand yet. Bitcoin. There are no banks. No chargebacks. No central authority. To its users, Silk Road feels untouchable. At the top sits its founder, Ross Ulbricht, known online as Dread Pirate Roberts. By 2012, the site is processing millions of dollars in transactions, taking commissions on every deal. Business is booming. But scale creates blind spots. With thousands of Bitcoin flowing in and out every day, Silk Road systems are built for speed, not suspicion. Withdrawals are automated. Trust is assumed. And timing matters more than verification. Somewhere inside that machinery, a flaw exists. Not obvious. Not intentional. Just a small gap, waiting for the wrong person to notice it. Silk Road isn't hacked in the traditional sense. There's no malware. No stolen passwords. No backdoor planted in the code. Instead, the weakness hides in timing. The site's withdrawal system is designed to move fast, faster than it checks itself. Under normal use, that speed looks like efficiency. But to someone paying close attention, it looks like an opening. A young, technically skilled user notices something strange. If withdrawal requests hit the system at the exact same moment, they aren't always processed sequentially. They're treated as separate, even when they shouldn't be. It's subtle, easy to miss, and devastating if exploited. The realization is simple and dangerous. If the system can be confused for even a fraction of a second, it might release more Bitcoin than it's supposed to. At that moment, this isn't yet a crime. It's a possibility. But once the flaw is understood, the question becomes unavoidable. Does anyone dare to test it? The plan is bold and deceptively simple. To exploit the flaw, the hacker doesn't need access to Silk Road servers. He doesn't need insider credentials. He only needs accounts. So he creates them. Roughly 9 Silk Road accounts, registered under false names with the bare minimum information required. They aren't used to buy or sell drugs. They exist for one purpose only, to move Bitcoin. He starts small. One account receives a deposit of 500 Bitcoin, worth about $6,600 at the time. Then, in a single second, he fires off a rapid-fire burst of withdrawal requests. The same account. The same amount. Again and again. Silk Road's system doesn't slow down. It doesn't double-check. It simply responds. Each request is treated as valid. Each one releases 500 Bitcoin. In the blink of an eye, the original 500 Bitcoin deposit becomes 2,000 Bitcoin credited back to the account. A net gain of 1,500 coins, created out of nothing. It works. So he repeats it. Across multiple accounts, the same pattern unfolds. One burner account executes more than 50 withdrawals before the system can react. Every time, the balance grows larger. By the time anyone notices something is wrong, the damage is already done. The hacker isn't guessing anymore. He's printing Bitcoin. When the withdrawals finally stop, the numbers are staggering. Across those burner accounts, the hacker has siphoned approximately 50,000 Bitcoin from Silk Road. At 2012 prices, it's worth around $600,000, a massive theft, but not yet world-shaking. And somehow, no one notices. Silk Road is processing thousands of transactions every day. Drugs moving. Payments clearing. Commissions flowing in. Against that noise, a glitch in the withdrawal system doesn't immediately stand out. By the time the site's administrators realize something is wrong, the vulnerability is patched. The flaw is closed. But the Bitcoin is gone. There's no alarm. No frozen accounts. No suspect to chase. The funds have already moved beyond Silk Road's control, scattered into addresses only the thief can access. Without fanfare, without witnesses, one of the largest digital thefts in history simply disappears. And the person responsible slips quietly into the dark. With the theft complete, the hacker moves fast, but not recklessly. The stolen Bitcoin is shuffled through multiple addresses under his control, breaking any obvious connection to Silk Road. Within days, the funds are consolidated into just 2 wallets. One holds 40,000 Bitcoin. The other holds 10,000. From the outside, all anyone can see are coins changing addresses on the blockchain. There's no name. No IP address. No physical location. The thief doesn't need malware. He doesn't threaten anyone. He doesn't even write especially complex code. He simply exploited timing. In 2012, tracing Bitcoin is like chasing smoke. Law enforcement barely understands how the system works, let alone how to follow it in real time. If Silk Road's operators notice the missing funds at all, it's already too late. The coins are beyond their reach. The hacker vanishes. No messages. No demands. No clues. Just 50,000 Bitcoin, sitting silently outside the system they came from, and a thief who, for now, is completely invisible. Time keeps moving. Silk Road continues operating, unaware, or unwilling to acknowledge that a massive theft has already occurred. It won't be shut down by the FBI until October 2013, when Ross Ulbricht is arrested in a San Francisco library. Even then, there's no breakthrough. Ulbricht's laptops reveal detailed records of drug sales and communications, but nothing that explains where the missing 50,000 Bitcoin went. The theft remains invisible. Meanwhile, the stolen Bitcoin begins to change. Bitcoin's price climbs year by year. What was once worth $600,000 quietly grows into tens of millions, then hundreds of millions of dollars. The wallets remain untouched. No sudden spending. No public trail. On paper, one of the largest crypto fortunes in the world is forming, without a name attached to it. To investigators, there's only a mystery. A known pile of Bitcoin. And no idea who's holding it. The longer it sits undisturbed, the safer it seems. And whoever stole it is learning an important lesson. Time, in this system, can be a weapon. Up to this point, the hacker has no face. Just wallets, transactions, and a decade-long silence. But behind the screens, there is a real person. His name is James Zhong, often called Jimmy. In 2012, when the Silk Road theft happened, he was 22 years old. A student. A self-taught coder. Living in Athens, Georgia, a college town better known for football than cybercrime. Jimmy doesn't fit the stereotype of a criminal mastermind. Friends later describe him as soft-spoken, polite, and reserved. More tech geek than outlaw. And with access to an enormous and illegal fortune, he does something unexpected. He does almost nothing. There's no luxury cars. No social media bragging. No sudden lifestyle change that draws attention. Instead, he understands the real danger. The Bitcoin isn't useful unless he can touch it, and touching it too fast could expose everything. So Jimmy waits. The phantom remains a phantom, at least for now. For more than a year, the two main wallets, 40,000 Bitcoin and 10,000 Bitcoin, remain untouched. It's a deliberate choice. Moving too fast would raise questions. Converting large amounts to cash would leave footprints. And governments around the world are starting to pay attention to cryptocurrency. When Jimmy finally begins to move the funds, he does it slowly. From late 2013 through 2017, the Bitcoin is dribbled out in small portions, split into new addresses, shifted again, and moved like a shell game designed to break any clear line back to Silk Road. He likely uses cryptocurrency mixers, services that blend coins together to obscure their origins. Some funds pass through offshore exchanges with looser oversight. It isn't flashy. It's patient laundering. Then, in August 2017, something unexpected happens. Bitcoin undergoes a hard fork, creating a new currency, Bitcoin Cash. Anyone holding Bitcoin automatically receives an equal amount of BCH. Overnight, Jimmy now controls 50,000 Bitcoin Cash, free, simply for holding. He moves quickly this time, cashing out the BCH and converting it into approximately 3,500 additional Bitcoin. Without taking any new risk, his fortune grows again. By late 2017, Jimmy's total holdings reach roughly 50,500 Bitcoin, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and climbing. All without a single knock at the door. By 2019, Bitcoin's value is surging into the $10,000 to $20,000 range. On paper, Jimmy Zhong is now worth hundreds of millions, possibly billions of dollars. Quietly, he has become one of the largest individual Bitcoin holders on Earth. Yet his life remains remarkably ordinary. Rather than splurging, Jimmy begins converting small portions of the fortune into assets that don't live on the blockchain. In Memphis, Tennessee, he invests about $9.5 million into a real estate development company, securing an 80% stake in a major project. He accumulates physical gold and silver bars. He holds large amounts of cash, later totaling $661,000. These choices aren't reckless. They're defensive. Blockchain assets can be tracked. Physical ones are harder to freeze. At the same time, law enforcement is catching up. The IRS, FBI, and private blockchain analysis firms are getting better at tracing cryptocurrency flows. Investigators know something is missing from Silk Road's books. They've traced the stolen 50,000 Bitcoin to a cluster of addresses. What they don't have is a name. The wallets go dormant, or pass through mixers. The trail goes cold again and again. For nearly a decade, Jimmy believes he's done enough. He's patient. He's careful. And so far, he's right. The perfect crime appears to be holding. Nearly 10 years have passed since the Silk Road theft. By now, Jimmy Zhong has lived an entire adult life without consequences. The wallets are still under his control. The authorities are still guessing. And confidence begins to replace caution. Sometime in 2019, Jimmy decides to move a tiny amount of Bitcoin. Not a fortune. Not even a meaningful sum. About $200. It may be a test, a trial run, or simply a small reward after years of restraint. He sends the Bitcoin from one of his wallets to an account on a popular cryptocurrency exchange. This time, the exchange isn't offshore. It isn't anonymous. It follows strict Know Your Customer rules. Jimmy doesn't move much, but he moves it the wrong way. And in doing so, he creates something he's avoided for nearly a decade. A link. One transaction. One traceable account. One moment where the phantom touches the real world. The mistake is almost invisible. But the blockchain never forgets. That $200 transfer does what years of investigation could not. When the transaction hits the exchange, it quietly combines two inputs. One originates from a wallet tied to the 2012 Silk Road theft. The other comes from a wallet already linked to a verified exchange account. To the blockchain, this is enough. Automated analysis tools flag the movement almost immediately. The pattern is unmistakable. For the first time in 10 years, the stolen Bitcoin is connected to a real identity. Investigators don't rush in. They move carefully. Through legal requests, they obtain the exchange's KYC records. A name. An email address. Login data. The name is James Zhong. The IP address traces back to Gainesville, Georgia. After a decade of dead ends, the Silk Road mystery cracks open, not with a breakthrough raid or a confession, but with a single routine transaction. The ghost finally has a face. Once investigators have a name, they don't move in right away. They watch. Federal agents begin discreet surveillance of James Zhong. They study his routines, his finances, his lifestyle. What they find is almost disappointing. Zhong isn't on the run. He isn't living in luxury. There's no public sign of a billionaire hiding in plain sight. He lives quietly in Georgia, blending into the background. No erratic spending. No sudden travel. Nothing that screams criminal mastermind. But in this case, the normalcy is the confirmation. The blockchain trail. The exchange records. And now a man whose life is calm enough to suggest long-term confidence. Investigators know what that usually means. The money is still close. They also know the risk. Digital assets can disappear with a single keystroke. A warning, a phone call, even a rumor could send billions vanishing forever. So they build their case slowly, methodically, waiting for the right moment. When they finally act, it won't be halfway. In November 2021, the waiting ends. Federal agents arrive at a modest home in Gainesville, Georgia with a search warrant. No sirens. No spectacle. Just a knock. Inside, they expect computers, hardware wallets, maybe encrypted drives. What they find instead feels almost surreal. Hidden inside a popcorn tin, investigators discover physical storage devices holding private keys. Nearby, in a safe, more wallets. Layered. Redundant. Carefully preserved. The digital fortune has been living in the physical world the entire time. By the end of the search, agents seize 50,676 Bitcoin, worth roughly $3.36 billion at the time. One of the largest financial seizures in U.S. history. There's no dramatic arrest footage. No resistance. Just the quiet collapse of a decade-long secret. The phantom is gone. 4 years, the stolen Silk Road Bitcoin was considered gone forever. Lost to time. Lost to cryptography. Lost to a system designed to forget its users. Now, suddenly, it isn't. The U.S. government announces the recovery quietly, then confirms the scale. 50,676 Bitcoin. Recovered in full. From a single individual. At the time of seizure, the value exceeds $3.3 billion, making it the largest cryptocurrency seizure in U.S. history and one of the largest asset recoveries ever recorded. For investigators, this outcome was almost unheard of. Crypto cases usually end with partial recoveries, frozen accounts, or empty wallets. This one ends with the money physically in custody. The narrative flips. The system that was supposed to be powerless, slow, outdated, blind, proves patient instead. 10 years of silence. One mistake. And suddenly, the impossible happens. But recovery isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of accountability. With the Bitcoin now in government custody, the case moves from investigation to accountability. In 2022, Federal prosecutors file charges against James Zhong for wire fraud, tied directly to the 2012 Silk Road theft. There is no sweeping indictment. No list of secondary crimes. Just a single charge, carefully chosen, legally sufficient, and impossible to dispute. Zhong pleads guilty. In court records, he acknowledges exploiting a flaw in Silk Road's withdrawal system, allowing him to withdraw Bitcoin repeatedly without reducing his balance. What once appeared to be an unsolvable technical mystery is reduced to something far more ordinary. A system error. Repeated, unreported, and quietly abused. As part of the plea agreement, Zhong agrees to forfeit the entire Bitcoin cash seized during the 2021 search. After nearly 10 years of silence, the digital theft concludes not with spectacle, but with a signature. The consequences, however, are not finished yet. James Zhong's case is often remembered as an anomaly, a once-in-a-generation crypto theft, a statistical outlier. But investigators see it differently. Nothing about this required elite access or inside help. No passwords were stolen. No encryption was broken. The failure was structural. A software flaw existed. It was exploited quietly. And once the money moved, responsibility fragmented. Silk Road shut down. Its founder was arrested. The platform disappeared. But the stolen Bitcoin didn't. Each institution assumed the problem belonged to someone else. Years passed. Records aged. Attention faded. This is the pattern that repeats across financial systems, digital and traditional alike. Complex platforms reward speed. Oversight comes later. And when no single actor owns the full risk, accountability weakens. Zhong didn't outrun the system. He simply waited while it looked away. James Zhong avoided detection for nearly a decade. Not because he was invisible, but because he was patient. The technology worked exactly as designed. The blockchain recorded everything. It never forgot. What failed was timing, coordination, and the assumption that stolen digital money would stay untouchable forever. In the end, the system didn't need a breakthrough. It needed one mistake. A small transaction. A compliant exchange. A record that connected the past to the present. For every theft that ends like this, many don't. Some wallets remain dormant. Some stories never close. Which raises the question that still matters. If a decade wasn't enough to disappear, how long is long enough? And more importantly, who's watching the next one?